Hello everyone, Bhaskar here. Now we are going to listen to podcast news which includes important national, international and business, economy, news. While walking in the morning or evening, while cooking, cycling or during free time you can listen. It will enhance your learning and understanding of various accents and pronunciations. Listening improves the quality of communication and comprehension. Before going ahead, I would like to welcome you all to the virtual school. A new way of learning and teaching, with the vision of Let's Grow Together. Our mission is to learn how to learn and teach how to teach. So stay tuned. And here we go. July 22, 2021. Important national news. Government claim on oxygen scarcity deaths is appalling, say experts. COVID-19 death certification does not record lack of oxygen, says epidemiologist. Breathing space, cylinders kept ready at a hospital in Visakhapatnam in May. Deepak Kr. Special Correspondent, New Delhi. The center's claim in the Rajya Sabha on Tuesday that a lack of medical oxygen did not lead to deaths of COVID-19 patients was hollow and callous, public health experts said. Public health expert and epidemiologist Chandrakant Laharia said that technically no COVID-19 death would be recorded as due to lack of oxygen, but the experience of patients and the fact that the availability of oxygen would have saved lives meant that the center should have chosen its words with care. They will be recorded as COVID deaths and lack of oxygen will never be noted as an immediate cause. However, oxygen is necessary for treatment and the failure of the system to provide it has to be acknowledged. The center's bureaucratic response is contrary to the public experience and a more empathetic view was required. Not doing so means we run the risk of repeating mistakes, Dr. Laharia said. Malini Isala, convener, All India Drug Action Network, described the center's position as absurd and reflective of a refusal to acknowledge the death toll of the second wave because of a colossal failure to prepare and respond. Oxygen shortage was undeniably a direct factor in causing numerous deaths not limited to hospitals, but even patients stranded in homes and struggling to get admission in hospitals, she said. There is a reality that cannot be erased from public memory of hospitals making appeals for oxygen supplies, to media, and to courts, and sharing death toll due to oxygen running out. 10 PMS, who chief staffer, Telegram founder targeted Macron, Ramaphosa, Pavel Durov were on Pegasus list. Special Correspondent Chennai. Telephone numbers linked to 10 prime ministers, 3 presidents, and a king appeared on the list of potential targets for spying using the Pegasus spyware of the Israeli company NSO Group, according to reports. The numbers connected with a former staffer of Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, Director General, World Health Organization, and Pavel Durov, the Russian tech billionaire who founded the Telegram messaging app, are also on the list of numbers selected by NSO's clients. France's Emmanuel Macron, Iraq's Barham Saleh and South Africa's Cyril Ramaphosa are the presidents on the list. Morocco's Mohammed VI is the king. Pakistan's Imran Khan, Egypt's Mustafa Madbuli and Morocco's Saadetdine El Othmani are the prime ministers on the leaked database, which also has 7 former prime ministers, who were added to the list when they were in power. They are Yemen's Ahmed Abaid bin Dakr, Lebanon's Saad Hariri, Uganda's Ruhakan Aruganda, France's Edouard Philippe, Kazakhstan's Baket Jean Sajintayev, Algeria's Noureddin Bedoui and Belgium's Charles Michel, according to the Wire News website and international publications. Mr. Khan's numbers appeared in a group dominated by Indian targets, The Washington Post reported. Mr. Saleh and Mr. Hariri were found among numbers dominated by the UAE and Saudi groups. The Pakistan government has said it is investigating whether a number used by Mr. Khan was compromised. India has rejected surveillance allegations, saying they have no concrete basis or truth associated with it whatsoever. The Israeli company issued a statement on Tuesday evening, saying, at least 3 names, identified by the media reports President Macron, King Mohammed VI and the WHO director Tedros, are not, and never have been, targets or selected as targets of NSO Group customers. 1.2 lakh Indian children lost caregivers, study. Special Correspondent, New Delhi. As many as 1.19 lakh children in India lost their primary caregivers, one or both parents or one or both custodial grandparents, to COVID-19, placing the country after Mexico, 1.4 lakh, and Brazil, 1.3 lakh, in this figure, says a new study published in The Lancet. Globally, this figure stood at 11.34 lakh between March 1, 2020, and April 30, 2021. Children who lost either a mother or a father totaled 10.42 lakh, with 1.16 lakh of them in India. The study developed estimates of pandemic-associated orphanhood and caregiver deaths using excess mortality and deaths for 21 countries that accounted for 76.4% of the global deaths during the period. It then used these findings to develop global extrapolations. Researchers from the COVID-19 response team of the U.S. Centers for Disease Control, Imperial College, London, the University of Oxford and the World Bank were among those who conducted the study. More than 15 lakh children around the world lost at least one primary or secondary caregiver, co-residing grandparent. This figure stood at 1.86 lakh for India. Though India ranks third in absolute numbers, its figure of 0.3 per 1,000 children was much lower than those of countries such as South Africa, 5.1, Mexico, 3.5, Brazil, 2.4, Colombia, 2.3, Iran, 1.7, the US, 1.5, Argentina, 1.1, and Russia, 1. There were up to 5 times more children with deceased fathers than mothers. HC states Arunachal's entry permit notification state had sought vaccination for not. Special Correspondent Guwahati. The Atangar bench of the Guwahati High Court has stayed the Arunachal Pradesh government's June 30 notification prescribing temporary entry permits for developmental works in public and private sectors only to those vaccinated against COVID-19. Hearing a public interest litigation petition filed by Dibang Valley District resident Mudun Mili on July 19, Justice Nani Tajia said the notification classifying people into the vaccinated and the unvaccinated for the purpose of issuance of temporary permit violates Articles 14, 19, 1, d, and 21 of the Constitution of India. Indians who intend to visit Arunachal Pradesh as in 3 other northeastern states for business or tourism need to possess an inner line permit, ILP, a British-era system. Tourist ILPs shall remain suspended during the period of this order till August 1. However, for developmental works in both public and private sectors, temporary permits may be issued, provided such persons are vaccinated for COVID-19, Clause 11 of the government notification read. Representing the state, Additional Advocate General R.H. Nabam said the restrictions were placed due to the rising cases of COVID-19 with the sole objective of checking the spread of the pandemic in the state. No evidence. Examining the plea for staying Clause 11 of the government order, Justice Tajia noted, there is no evidence available either in the record or in the public domain that COVID-19 vaccinated persons cannot be infected with COVID-19 virus, or he/she cannot be a carrier of COVID-19 virus and consequently a spreader of COVID-19 virus. It observed that even a vaccinated but COVID-infected person can be a super spreader. Restrictions based on a person's vaccination status did not hold any water and that there was no justification for discrimination, it stated. Staying the operation of the impugned Clause 11, the court issued notice on the matter returnable on July 28. Lightweight anti-tank missile tested by DRDO trial has met the mission objectives. The man-portable, anti-tank missile being test-fired. Press Trust of India, New Delhi. A new generation of Akash surface-to-air missile was successfully flight-tested on Wednesday by the DRDO from an integrated test range off the Odisha coast in a boost to air defense capabilities. Separately, the DRDO also successfully flight-tested an indigenously developed low-weight man-portable anti-tank guided missile, paving the way for its production for the Army. The Defense Ministry said the Akash missile was test-fired at around 12:45 p.m. from a land-based platform and that the flawless performance of its weapons system was confirmed by the complete flight data. Once deployed, the Akash-NG weapon system will prove to be a force multiplier for the air defense capability of the IAF, the ministry said. It is learned that the new variant of the Akash missile, Akash-NG, has a slightly better range compared to the original version that can strike targets at a distance of around 25 kilometers. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh congratulated the DRDO, the IAF, and production agencies Bharat Electronics Limited, BEL, and Bharat Dynamics Limited, BDL, for the test firing of the missile. On the man-portable missile, the Defense Ministry said the test had validated the minimum range successfully. BSF and Pakistan Rangers exchanged sweets on ID first time since the Pakistani side shunned custom in 2019. Breaking the ice, BSF and Pakistan Rangers exchanging sweets on the Atari-Wagah border on Wednesday. PTI. Press Trust of India, New Delhi. The Border Security Force, BSF, and the Pakistan Rangers on Wednesday exchanged sweets at various points along the border on the occasion of Eid-ul-Azha, the first time since the Pakistani side shunned the custom in 2019. A BSF spokesperson here said, An exchange of sweets took place between the BSF and the Pakistan Rangers on the occasion of Eid at JCP Joint Checkpost Atari. This lies across the Wagah border in Amritsar district of Punjab. A similar exchange of sweets took place between the two forces along the Rajasthan front too, officials said. The Pakistani side had unilaterally stopped the exchange after the Narendra Modi government abrogated the provisions of Article 370 of the Constitution, which gave special status to Jammu and Kashmir, on August 5, 2019. After the developments of August 2019, an offer of exchanging sweets was made by the BSF, but the Pakistani side did not reciprocate, the spokesperson added. The BSF spokesperson, however, said this custom was suspended last year due to the outbreak of COVID-19. The BSF guards the around 2,290 kilometers India-Pakistan international border, IB, that runs north to south from Jammu, Punjab, Rajasthan, and up to Gujarat on India's western flank. SC must take cognizance of Pegasus. Mamta urges all the opposition parties to form a united front against the BJP without delay. Strong stand, West Bengal Chief Minister Mamta Banerjee in Kolkata on Wednesday. Tiptai. Shiv Sahai Singh, Kolkata. West Bengal Chief Minister Mamta Banerjee on Wednesday urged the Supreme Court to take suo motu cognizance of the Pegasus spyware issue and asked all the opposition parties to form a united front against the BJP without delay. My humble regards to our Honorable Supreme Court. Why can't the court take suo motu cognizance when judges' phones are tapped? Either take suo motu cognizance or set up and sit special investigation team monitored by you to know whose phones were affected. Only the judiciary can save democracy, she said. Ms. Banerjee was addressing the annual Martyrs' Day rally in Kolkata, which was telecast live across several states, including New Delhi. The July 21 Martyrs' Day rally is organized annually by the Trinamool Congress to commemorate the 1993 Kolkata firing. The Trinamool Congress chairperson added, "We must forget our individual interests and come together to save the country. To work together, we must form a front without any delay." Ms. Banerjee said she would visit New Delhi later this month and would be happy to meet opposition leaders between July 26 and 29. I also want to meet important leaders. Chidambaramji Congress leader P. Chidambaram will be there. Sharaji Nationalist Congress Party chairperson Sharad Pawar will be there. I am ready to attend any meeting between July 26 and 29. Ms. Banerjee, who is likely to visit New Delhi after 2 years on July 25, said, "The general election is still 2.5 years away, but nothing will be achieved if we form an alliance just before it." The Chief Minister urged each and every opposition party to start working together to make a front and not leave matters for the last moment. If the doctor comes after death, nothing will happen. If the treatment is done on time, the patient can be cured. Now is your time. The more time you waste, the more the situation will worsen, she said. The Chief Minister alleged that her phone was tapped. She said she had put plasters on her phone as they sent her tap everything. "See, I have put plasters on it, what else can I do? The camera turns on when I use audio or make video calls. I have put a plaster on my phone's camera. The government of India should be plastered, or else the country will be in ruins," she stated. The Chief Minister, who spoke in Bengali, Hindi, and English during an hour-long speech, alleged that the centre did not trust anyone, including its own ministers. "I cannot talk to Chidambaramji, Sharaji because my phone is tapped. I cannot talk to the Delhi Chief Minister, the Telangana Chief Minister or any other Chief Minister," she added. During her speech, Ms. Banerjee repeatedly said, "Pegasus is dangerous and ferocious." She accused the centre of indulging in spaghetti surveillance and the BJP of being a high-load virus party. She also blamed the Prime Minister for the monumental failure in handling the second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. She thanked the state's people for electing her to power for a third term. Bengal is the model state for the country and not Gujarat. Ms. Banerjee also relaunched her party's mouthpiece, Jago Bangla, as a daily, with the lead article saying, "Abar Sapath Chalo Delhi now, let's go to Delhi." Intelligence agencies not grounded in law, Pegasus would not have happened if they were held accountable, says Congress leader Manish Tiwari. Sobhana Kane Air New Delhi. The use of NSO Group's Pegasus spyware against opposition leaders, activists, judges, and journalists would not have occurred if intelligence agencies were grounded in law and with provisions for holding them accountable, senior Congress leader Manish Tiwari has said. In 2011, Mr. Tiwari had moved a private member's bill in the Lok Sabha, the Intelligence Services, Powers and Regulation, bill that sought to bring appropriate statutory basis for intelligence agencies. It also dealt with the question of balancing the demands of security and privacy of individuals. Mr. Tawari listed an improved version of the bill in 2019, but since the beginning of the 17th Lok Sabha, private members' business has not been taken up. The problem in India is that both the law enforcement and intelligence organizations do not have a sound legal basis, he stated. Mr. Tawari pointed to a November 2013 Guwahati High Court judgment, which called the Central Bureau of Investigation, CBI, illegal. For the past 8 years, the CBI's existence hung by the thread of a stay, as the Supreme Court had so far not adjudicated on the legality of the organization that had the authority to deprive people of their life and liberty, he stated. To a question raised by Mr. Tawari in 2009 on the legal basis of the Intelligence Bureau, IB, and the Research and Analysis Wing, RA, the government admitted that the RA had no basis in law. The IB, it stated, derived its existence from being on the union list. Mr. Tawari said, it creates a specter of completely unbridled power, when you have organizations functioning without any legal framework that have the ability to transgress in the personal lives of the citizens. The world over, he observed, intelligence agencies were governed by law. In each evolved democracy, intelligence agencies are subject to very rigorous parliamentary oversight. There are specific parliamentary committees that look at their functioning so that excess do not get committed. Unfortunately, in India, there is a complete absence of even a public discussion on how to hold the agencies accountable, he said. If this law had been in place, something like Pegasus would not have happened, Mr. Tawari added. Mr. Tawari said BJP leader Ravi Shankar Prasad, in an implicit admission of the government's culpability, had stated that when 45 countries had used the Pegasus spyware, why should India be singled out? Thank you. International news. UK wants new trade deal for an Ireland-European Union rebuffs Britain's demand for renegotiation on post-Brexit trading arrangements. Smooth passage, a file photo of a truck near the border between Northern Ireland and the Irish Republic. AFP. Agence France-Presse London. Britain demanded on Wednesday that the European Union renegotiate post-Brexit trading arrangements for Northern Ireland after rioting and business disruption hit the province, but the EU immediately rejected the offer. London stopped short of suspending the so-called Northern Ireland Protocol introduced at the start of the year, and which requires checks on goods arriving from mainland Britain and instead called for significant changes. It wants the European Union to indefinitely abandon ad hoc grace periods for certain border checks and freeze legal action launched against the UK for non-compliance, as part of a standstill period, allowing for fresh negotiations. Northern Ireland Secretary Brandon Lewis said while Britain had negotiated the protocol in good faith, its real-world application by the bloc had entailed considerable and continuing burdens. Put simply, we cannot go on as we are, he told UK lawmakers. We urge the EU to look at it with fresh eyes and work with us to seize this opportunity and put our relations on a better footing. Creative solutions. But within hours, the EU, which has long insisted that it is up to London to implement what it agreed in their drawn-out Brexit divorce, had ruled out any renegotiation. We are ready to continue to seek creative solutions, within the framework of the protocol, in the interest of all communities in Northern Ireland, European Commission Vice President Maros Sefcovic said in a statement. However, we will not agree to a renegotiation of the protocol. The protocol was painstakingly negotiated to avoid a hard border with Ireland, by effectively keeping Northern Ireland in the EU's single market. Northern Ireland, which suffered 3 decades of sectarian conflict until a peace agreement in 1998, has been rocked by violence this year, in part against the protocol. Many pro-UK unionists see it as creating a de facto border in the Irish Sea with mainland Britain and say they feel betrayed. UK proposals. In its proposals, Britain urged the EU to stop broad checks and focus more squarely on goods genuinely at risk of entering its single market via Northern Ireland. The government insisted for all other goods, a light touch was needed to preserve Northern Ireland's integral status as part of the UK. It also wants the removal of any oversight role by the European Court of Justice. Climate cooperation depends on overall ties. China tells U.S.Kerry asks Beijing to step up its efforts to reduce emissions. Smoke and steam rising from an unauthorized steel factory. Getty Images. Ananth Krishnan. China said on Wednesday its cooperation with the United States on climate change will depend on the overall state of relations between the two countries, warning the Joe Biden administration, which has placed special emphasis on tackling climate change, that working together on this issue may extract a price. As the largest developing country and the largest developed country in the world, China and the United States share common interests in addressing climate change, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Jian said. We should step up communication and coordination, and play an exemplary role in the international community. That said, I want to stress that China-U.S. cooperation in specific areas is closely related to the overall China-U.S. relationship. The U.S. should not, on the one hand, wantonly interfere in China's internal affairs and harm China's interests, while on the other hand, ask China to show understanding and support in bilateral and global affairs. Not sufficient. His comments followed a call from the U.S. Special Presidential Envoy for Climate, John Kerry, for China to do more. He said Beijing's commitment to peak emissions by 2030 was not sufficient to ensure a 1.5 degrees Celsius global warming target. If China sticks with its current plan and does not peak its emissions until 2030, then the entire rest of the world must go to zero by 2040 or even 2035, he said. There is simply no alternative because without sufficient reduction by China, the goal of 1.5C is essentially impossible. Mr. Zhao pointed out, regarding China's efforts, that the country's national carbon trading market had recently begun trading and carbon emissions by companies in the first batch were estimated to exceed 4 billion tons per year, making the market the world's largest in terms of the amount of greenhouse gas emissions. China will strive to peak carbon dioxide emissions by 2030 and achieve carbon neutrality by 2060, he said. China will make the stride from carbon peaking to carbon neutrality within a far shorter period than developed countries. This is a major strategic decision made by China. In addressing climate change and successfully achieving emission reduction, China expects the U.S. to match its words with deeds, earnestly fulfill its due obligations and make its due contributions. U.S. diplomat visit. This is expected to be one of the many issues on the agenda later this week when Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman travels to China on July 25 and meets Foreign Minister and State Councilor Wang Yi. The State Department announced in a statement on Wednesday that these discussions are part of ongoing U.S. efforts to hold candid exchanges with PRC officials to advance U.S. interests and values and to responsibly manage the relationship. The Deputy Secretary will discuss areas where we have serious concerns about PRC actions, as well as areas where our interests align, the statement said. Taliban in defense status during Eid holiday. Agence France Presse Kabul. The Taliban said on Wednesday they would fight only to defend themselves over the holiday of Eid al-Adha, but stopped short of declaring a formal ceasefire. The militants are waging sweeping offensives across Afghanistan, snapping up territory, seizing border crossings and encircling cities, with the withdrawal of foreign troops all but complete. I can confirm we are in defense status during Eid, a spokesman for the Taliban said, without offering further details. Pause in fighting. Eid al-Adha is one of the biggest festivals on the Muslim calendar. In Afghanistan, celebrations started this Monday and will run to the end of Friday. For past Islamic holidays, the militants have declared a pause in fighting with government forces, offering a brief respite to Afghans who can visit family in relative safety. But the group has been criticized for using ceasefires to reinforce their positions and resupply fighters, allowing them to attack Afghan security forces once the truce expires. The Taliban comment comes a day after President Ashraf Ghani said in a speech that the Taliban had proved they have no will and intention for peace, with negotiations between the two warring sides achieving little. Minutes before his address, at least 3 rockets landed near the presidential palace where Mr. Ghani held outdoor prayers with top officials to mark the start of Eid. The attack was claimed by the Islamic State group. While ideologically different, the much smaller IS has been accused in the past of acting as a proxy for the Taliban. More than a dozen diplomatic missions in Kabul this week called for an urgent end to the Taliban's current offensive, saying it was at odds with claims they want to secure a political deal to end the conflict. That statement followed another round of inconclusive talks in Doha over the weekend between the two sides, that many had hoped would kickstart the ailing peace process. France launches vaccine pass as fourth wave hits it as must at events with over 50 people. Agence France Presse Paris. French cinemas, museums, and sports venues began asking visitors on Wednesday to furnish proof of COVID-19 vaccination or a negative test as the country, which is in the throes of a fourth wave of infections, rolled out a controversial vaccine passport system. The so-called health pass is required for all events or places with more than 50 people before being extended to restaurants, cafes, and shopping centers in August. Prime Minister Jean Castex defended the policy, noting that nearly all new infections were in people who had not been immunized. He added that the goal of the pass was to avoid another lockdown. The number of new cases shot up to 21,000 on Wednesday, the highest since early May. 25 killed, dams damaged in record flooding in central ChinaZhengzhou receives 87% of annual precipitation in 24 hours, troops deployed to fortify embankments, divert reservoir water. Passengers stuck in a submerged subway car. AFP. Ananth Krishnan. At least 25 people were reported killed and tens of thousands relocated after record flooding in central China caused extensive damage, including to dams that officials fear are on the verge of bursting. Chinese social media on Wednesday circulated horrifying images of flooding in Zhengzhou, the capital city of Henan province, including commuters stuck on flooded subway carriages unable to get out as water levels rose. At least 12 of those killed were reported to have died because of water flooding the city's subway system as commuters were heading home. Authorities said on Wednesday evening that the toll had risen to 25, with 7 missing. That number is feared to increase in coming days as reports come in from elsewhere in the province and with further rainfall forecast. Officials said 1.24 million people had been affected and 1,64,710 people had to be relocated. The flooding followed an extraordinary period of rainfall. Zhengzhou picked up an incredible 21.75 inches, 552.5 millimeters, of rain over the 24-hour period ending Tuesday. That's 87% of their average annual precipitation in 24 hours. It's also equal to their average 7-month total from April-October, meteorologist Jonathan Erdman said on Twitter. Pressure on dams. The biggest concern on Wednesday revolved around damages to several dams in the region. President Xi Jinping said the rainfall made the flood control situation very severe, causing severe waterlogging in Zhengzhou and other cities, water levels in some rivers exceeding alarm levels, and damages to dams of some reservoirs. Mr. Xi has ordered the army to be deployed. The Central Theater Command of the People's Liberation Army, PLA, sent more than 5,700 soldiers, armed police troops and militias, the state media reported, to fortify embankments and divert waters to relieve pressure on dams. The rains have led to water exceeding flood season levels in 9 large reservoirs and 40 medium-sized ones in Henan, official media reported. Russia supplying military equipment to Myanmar. Reuters Moscow. Russia is cooperating closely with Myanmar to supply military hardware, including aircraft, the Interfax news agency cited Alexander Mikheev, the head of Russian state arms trader Rosoboronexport, as saying on Wednesday. Rights activists have accused Moscow of legitimizing Myanmar's junta, which seized power in a February 1 coup, by continuing bilateral visits and arms deals. Russia's defense minister Sergei Shoigu told Myanmar's junta leader Senior General Min Aung Hlaing during his visit to the Russian capital last month that Moscow was committed to strengthening military ties. Speaking on the sidelines of Russia's annual Max Air Show, which President Vladimir Putin attended on Tuesday, Mr. Mikheev said Myanmar is one of Rosoboronexport's key customers in Southeast Asia and a key partner of Rostec, Russia's state aerospace and defense conglomerate. Ties between the two countries have grown in recent years, with Moscow providing training and university scholarships to thousands of soldiers, as well as selling arms to a military blacklisted by several Western countries. UNESCO strips Liverpool of its World Heritage status. A view of Liverpool's Albert Dock. Getty Images. Reuters London. The English city of Liverpool has been removed from UNESCO's list of World Heritage Sites after the United Nations Cultural Agency found new buildings, including a football stadium, undermined the attractiveness of its Victorian docks. Liverpool was named a World Heritage Site in 2004, joining cultural landmarks such as the Great Wall of China and the Taj Mahal. After a vote in China by members of its World Heritage Committee, UNESCO said on Twitter that Liverpool should be removed from the International Cultural Organization's list. Joanne Anderson, the Liverpool mayor, said the decision was incomprehensible. The only other sites stripped previously of the title are a wildlife sanctuary in Oman in 2007 after poaching and habitat loss, and the Dresden Elbe Valley in Germany in 2009 when a 4-lane motorway bridge was built over the river. HK Channel restricts staff on Taiwan. Agence France Presse Hong Kong. Hong Kong's public broadcaster has banned staff from calling Taiwan's leader president or referring to its government in new guidelines that mimic mainland China's rhetoric. In a memo sent to all staff on Tuesday, the management of RTHK News Channel said, inappropriate terminology such as country, Republic of China, ROC, must not be used when referring to Taiwan. Under no circumstances should Taiwan be referred to as a sovereign state or perceived as one, it added. Thank you. Economy news. Spirit of cooperative federalism is essential for GST to succeed. Our expenditure is increasing because of COVID and special schemes to help people, while income has stagnated. Without increased borrowings no state can survive. Varghese K. George Vikastut. With states' finances in the doldrums after the second COVID-19 wave, Kerala Finance Minister N. Balagopal has urged Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman to allow states to borrow up to 5% of their gross state domestic product, GSDP, this year, without any reform conditions. The GST regime needs urgent fixing as revenues are declining and the structure and functioning of the GST Council needs more democratization, he said. Excerpts. The centre recently released 75,000 Indian rupees crore of GST dues, of which over 4,100 Indian rupees crore was to Kerala. Will this alter your borrowing plans? I personally met the Union Finance Minister that day when they released around 4,200 Indian rupees crore to us. Even though it is belated, it is good. Due to the financial crisis in the state due to the second COVID wave, whatever money we are getting from these means are not enough for facing our requirements. Actually, the financial situation for the last 5 years has been stagnant, not only for Kerala but other states also. The annual borrowing limit this year has been fixed at 4% of GSDP. But only 0.5% of this is untied. An equal amount is permitted for achieving certain levels of capital expenditure and, separately, for undertaking electricity reforms. We are now discussing the latter but it's difficult to meet all these formalities. So we have urged the finance minister to allow states to borrow up to 5% of GSDP, without any conditions, but they have not accepted that. So our options are limited in this scenario. Our expenditure is increasing because of COVID expenses and special schemes introduced to help people and income has stagnated for the last few years. Without increased borrowings no state can survive, at least in the present situation. Last year's compensation dues are still pending and the FM had promised a GST Council meet to discuss all compensation-related issues. What is your stand? The compensation issue is a serious one. We have already asked for states' protected revenue under GST to be extended for another 5 years, because there's actually a very serious fall in income since GST's inception. There's a systemic failure, the COVID situation and, for Kerala, floods and other natural disasters have also hit income. Almost all states are seeing a decline in income. So, the compensation should continue for another 5 years. The GST regime is showing some systemic failure as the income is not going up. Our average income as a percentage of sales has fallen from 16% 4 years back, to only 11%, prices haven't fallen for the consumer. This means that if we are getting 50,000 Indian rupees crore tax now, it would have been another 18,000 Indian rupees crore in the earlier kind of taxation system and if buoyancy had continued. There will be a very serious discussion about the future of compensation and on the taxation policy to see if some more plugging is needed and actual taxes need to go up. Moreover, the devolution theory of the central government would also have to be discussed, separately. Could you explain this a bit? Up to the last Finance Commission, we were getting 2.45% from the divisible pool of taxes. Now, we are getting only 1.92%. In the 1980s, our share was 3.92%, so that is the fall now. That means we are not getting our rightful part from the central pool. Earlier, the 1971 population was the base. Now it is 2011. Because of our development in education, health, we have some improvement and feel we are being penalized for that. The Tamil Nadu FM has raised concerns about the constitution and functioning of the GST Council. What is your view? The predominance of the central government in the GST Council's functioning was expected. Even the ANK was very strongly against it. The central government is getting maximum control in the administration of the council, and if they're managing some states to back them, nobody can change that decision. So, the prerogative of the central government will succeed. Now, fortunately other parties are understanding or accepting the points which we raised. The GST experiment will not be successful. Brexit happened because Britain wanted to go out of the European Union taxation and migration laws that it felt will not be helpful. United States, which is considered business-friendly, does not have this kind of a tax system. Our counterpart from Tamil Nadu may be speaking from his experience. This is an important debate for the states, and more democratization in the true spirit of cooperative federalism should be there in the GST Council's functioning. In the last meeting, the center said it has the power to tax extra-neutral alcohol. There's a provision in the Constitution that ethanol for human consumption is under states. But they are saying that ENA is not for human consumption, so central GST will be charged. In the council, there was a very strong protest from almost all states, whether it was BJP ruled or Congress ruled. Byju's buys U.S. based Epic for $500 million, enters kids' digital reading space. Special correspondent Bengaluru. Online learning platform Byju's has acquired Palo Alto-based Epic, a digital reading platform for kids aged 12 and under, for $500 million, said the company on Wednesday. The acquisition would help Byju's expand its U.S. footprint by providing access to 2 million teachers and 50 million children in Epic's global user base. Interactive reading. This partnership will enable us to create engaging and interactive reading and learning experiences for children globally, said Byju Ravindran, founder and CEO, Byju's. Together with Epic, we have the opportunity to create impactful experiences for children to become lifelong learners. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching this video as a podcast. Do like, share and comment. Press the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to get new notifications. Thank you. Take care and stay safe. God bless you all. Jai Ma Bharti. To download news and editorials in mp3, follow us on Telegram, Virtual School Official. The link is provided in the description below.